This starts as a sad story. A 6 week old boy was taken away from shocked and shattered parents. For the next 16 years, that boy stayed away in a special education facility, meeting his parents only occasionally. That boy, Mike Adams, has grown into a superman without a robe, an inspiration to millions, CEO of his company Purple, and is on a path to ensure no other 6 week old boy or girl will ever be separated from their families because of disability. Mike Adams proves that disability must not stop life from happening. Ladies and gents, the champion of life, Mike Adams. Hi and welcome everyone around the world. I have a fantastic guest today, Mike Adams, all the way from Chelmsford, Essex, United Kingdom. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Good morning and welcome. Delighted to be with you today.
Thanks a lot for your time. I have read as much as I could about you and Purple, and I've also had the honor of talking to Isaac Harvey, who speaks very highly of you. I would like to start from a very simple question, and I would like to put this within the context. What do you think of gratitude overall? Because
I
let me put it into the context so that people don't take it in any other manner. Uh, we have, I believe, there are only two approaches to life. One that is seeped into acceptance and gratitude, and one that is the lack of it. That people live their entire lives feeling, lack of abilities, physical, mental, social, financial, and then there are people who accept and feel thankful and move on and do great things with what they have, forever feeling thankful. So it's very relative and subjective. Having looked at you and your life, I would really like to understand how you look at gratitude and thankfulness.
I look at it probably in two ways. Um, as an individual with a disability, um, gratitude is one of those things that I have lived with for 50 years. And without levels of gratitude, I don't think I would be where I am today. Because in many ways, being born with significant disabilities 50 years ago, my mum and dad were told when I was born that it would be best for everyone if I went to a special school, and that they needed to take care of my older brother and sister. And in those days, you trusted and you did what the medical profession told you. And so I went to special school at 6 weeks old, and my mum and dad and my brother and sister were able to come and visit me once a month or for one day at the weekend, and and then in the holidays. And a family who lived close by to the school got to know me and said, that cannot be right. We would like to take him every weekend so he didn't have to stay at school. And so I had two families really, and my gratitude to that family is enormous to this day. The legacy that they have left, the imprint they have left on me with their gratitude, has made me the individual I am. And I can note a number of people throughout my life who I am in gratitude for for pushing me to maximize my potential, not let my disability get in the way of my skills, my talents, my ability to contribute to this world. And their mindset and their pushing and their gratitude has been absolutely brilliant. I also know that there is a fine line with gratitude, and it comes or can come loaded with assumptions, particularly about disability, particularly about what you can't do, and particularly around trying to restrict my life and restrict what I do. And that's a really difficult gratitude to accept, because actually it's not about gratitude, it's about control, and it's about patriarch, and it's about we know better and we have to look after you. So I think there's different kinds of gratitude, and then gratitude of people generally to the issue of disability. And its gratitude really is one of those driving factors that is behind Purple, for whom I am the chief executive, for which we are wanting and we are changing the disability conversation. And we are moving disability away from being seen, thought of as solely about charity, solely about vulnerable people, solely about welfare, solely about the responsibility of government, whether it's local governments or national governments, and moving the dial and getting people to see disability as a value, as a
Mm.
contribution, as part of community, and as an opportunity. And if you're going to do that, whether it's individuals or organizations, you have to shift their mindset about what they see and how they view and how they deliver gratitude.
Absolutely amazing. It's so fantastic that you moved into the purple side of things, because that's what I was going to ask next. Uh, our prime minister here in India, uh, it's relevant to what you said. We've had we're probably number two in the world in terms of population, and everyone's been trying to figure out how to control it, how to manage it. So the current prime minister gave us a phrase right in his first year, and he said it's population dividend. So he said, stop looking at the population as a problem, which it is, because it takes into so many resources. We need to manage and control it. But we can also look at the population as this huge market for the international companies. And he started going around and selling this idea of population dividend. This is the power we have with 1.2 billion people. That's a huge market. So I think this disability dividend is a fantastic narrative. And I read somewhere that when you started Purple, people were not really sure of it. I read a phrase that selling the disability down the river, that's the kind of stuff you've been told. So how did you tackle it? Did you ever have, because it's normal for an outsider to feel that, okay, it's taken this market and it's commercializing it and it's minting money using this narrative of disability. How did you take it, and what your response has been onto that?
No, absolutely. And I really like the phrase disability dividend, because it's about flipping something
Yes.
from a negative into a positive. And in the context of the UK, we have 14.1 million disabled people. And they have a purchasing power. Their disposable income of them and their families is 274 billion pounds a year. And if what we have flipped is say, look, first and foremost, see disabled people as customers who have got this purchasing power, and only 10% of companies have any strategy to access this market, which is a hugely lucrative market, when evidence around the world shows that disabled people, disabled customers, are the most brand loyal. And
Hmm.
so at Purple, what we did, and I did get accused of selling disability down the river. I know that if we're going to change life opportunities for disabled people in the future, then what we had to do was raise the aspirations of disabled people, but equally raise the understanding, knowledge, and confidence of what I call the supply side, which is organizations who could then fulfill some of those expectations. Because otherwise, what traditionally you got
Hmm.
was disabled people be expectations being raised by people like me, by people like Isaac Harvey,
Hmm.
but actually governments saw disability as a welfare issue, a safety net, a group
Yeah.
of people we had to look after. And businesses saw disabled people as corporate social responsibility when things were going well. And, we would donate to charity. And I've seen, where quotas are required for organizations to employ disabled people, they just put it as a cost
Yes.
to their costs, really.
Yeah.
Um, and so what I did and what Purple did was say, look, disability is a commercial opportunity, and let's put the disabled customer at the forefront. And if we can get businesses to improve their disabled customer experience, then disabled people will use their purple pound to buy into those companies.
Yeah.
And then the logic that followed was that really good companies, and this is MBA talk, this is not disability talk, really good companies reflect in their workforce their consumer base. And so if they were having more disabled consumers, they would then be wanting more disabled people in their workforce. And suddenly you got the push factors from businesses wanting disabled people in their workforce to reflect their consumer base. And
Hmm.
for many, many people, that was a really, really hard thing to swallow, both from disabled people who said, no, nothing about us without us. But, the subtext was, we really are a group of vulnerable people and we're not a commodity, and don't you dare commoditize us. And then you've got businesses very, very worried about the exploitation of disabled people, and trying to sell to disabled people, and some of the negative PR that might have come from that. And I think we are getting there very quickly, that actually seeing disability as a business opportunity makes sense for both businesses and drives quality and career opportunity and employment for disabled people. And I have to say, I think COVID as a global initiative has enabled people like me to more easily position disability both as a commercial and a social impact issue. So we've been able to tap back a little bit in terms of our narrative, and to use your phrase or the Prime Minister's phrase, the disability dividend is about a commercial one, and it is about a social one that can work for both disabled people and for businesses. And if you look at this globally, the purple dollar worldwide equates to $8 trillion a year, but still only
Huge.
10% of
Yeah.
businesses have thought about disability and the market. And so there are huge, huge opportunities for people who grasp it, understand it, and then can deliver for disabled people.
Amazing, amazing. So you turn the narrative of welfare community, welfare community, into a capital market, a potential capital market. And I completely agree with you, because until you make anything commercially viable, it will not have the legs to go far enough. It's the simplest. It is a capitalist idea, but it's a truth. So unless you make it commercially viable, it will not travel far.
I
So
agree with you.
it is
I
a
absolutely, Hirsch, and I think what I've realised is that disability was always going to remain marginal and was always going to remain fragile if it depended simply on the goodwill and charitable donation of businesses. And what we have done is tried to hard bake disability as a commercial issue because of everything that would then flow from that, and would make it much, much more sustainable as the world went on a roller coaster of economic ups and downs. And we wanted to make sure that disability and disabled people became part of the fabric of what is right and what is commercially good. So I think we had to do it, but it has been a really, and I have the scars on my back from people that you have sold disabled people down the river, who now come to me very quietly and say, I think you got it right, but please don't tell anyone I told you so, and don't tell people that you've spoken to me. But we'll get there. We really will get there.
I the scars on your back, I'm sure, because someone's got to do it. Someone had to do it, and none better than you. So you access the disability dividend, and soon everyone will. I think a lot of people are already on board, and that idea about stopping that welfare narrative and the charity narrative, that is a very powerful narrative that you've changed, because you've told disabled people around the world that you don't have to rely on the goodwill of the society or the state. You have the disability dividend, and you have the power. I think something similar happened with the female market, not too long ago in the world, and they had to fight their way through. And when I see posts on LinkedIn that, this has been in trend for last couple of years, that women CEOs are writing that I am a CEO, not a woman CEO. And the inclusion of the women force, even the female oriented products were designed and marketed and sold and created by men for women, and they had to find this inclusion the hard way. It's I think, I don't know, that's how the society is built. You have to fight your way in, and you are truly a warrior to be doing it with scars on your back. I would like to take you back to, because I find those first 16 years of your life really, really, I can't even empathize enough, because I simply can't imagine your parents having to part ways when you were 6 weeks, and then thankfully you found a family, a second set of parents. You said, I read that part where you said that those were the happiest years of your life, and you're a man, whatever you are today, it's because of that difficult phase of your life, which in the hindsight seems difficult, but I think you enjoyed and learned a lot. And because I find it really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But you
And
mentioned those were the years that made you.
no, and it's really, really interesting, Hirsch, because one, just to say to your audience and the audience that I still have, and I have a really, really, really strong relationship with my mum and dad. We see them every week. They are an intrinsic part of my life now, and I'm very close to my brother and sister. But it all could have been very so different, and that's what I reflect on. And I have 5 children of my own, who are all non-disabled uh, children, but I would never, ever, ever allow them to go to kind of boarding school, for example, and be away from me. So I'm a slight contradiction,
Mm,
really, because on the one hand, I was saying it was the best thing that happened to me.
mm,
And then on the other hand, I'm saying, but I wouldn't allow it to happen to my children. And I think part of that is about we live in a different era now.
okay.
Um, and I think going to a special school enabled me to access an education that
Mm,
back then I would not have accessed. I would have, if I'd been in a mainstream school,
mm,
almost certainly I would have been put in the proverbial corner and almost forgotten about. Going to a special school enabled me to create a level of independence, understand what that meant, and get some qualifications,
mm,
which then enabled me to go to college and then university and to maximize my potential.
mm,
That was the world as it was then, and it was the right decision for me to be who I am today. It wouldn't be the right decision in 2022, even if I had disabled children. I would expect them to go to mainstream school and still get the education that they needed. But I
mm,
think what is powerful for me is that my relationships with both families remain absolutely the bedrock of who I am and has given me the confidence, the abilities, and the skills to then apply that life and those memories and those stories to make sure that we can ensure that the next generation of disabled people is all about opportunity. It is all about community. And I just wanted to make the point that not every disabled person will not have times in their life when they are vulnerable. I would argue that non disabled people will have situations in their life when they are vulnerable.
mm,
I'm also not saying that every disabled person will have the ability to work and will need to be looked after. That is absolutely true. That is not to say that even those individuals cannot contribute in some way to their community and to their society, and the dynamic of society to that individual should
mm,
be a much more equal one because there is a contribution to be made. And I think
mm,
if we see it through that lens,
mm.
then the contribution, the skills, the expertise of 22% of the UK population, I think it's 17% of the world population, can make a significant contribution to the society in which we live.
Absolutely fantastic. How did you find it when you came out after the 16 years in the special school? Getting back to the society, was it challenging?
Yeah, it was because I lived in this kind of very closeted world
Yeah.
where everyone was disabled,
Yeah.
and so I felt very normal. I didn't particularly know any different.
Yeah.
I had experienced days out in the outside world, and there was an extraordinary amount of staring and name calling and all of that, but which was a bit weird. But
Mm,
I had been protected pretty much for the first 16 years of my life. But I feel that I built the tools to be
mm,
able to be exposed and to be able to tell my story and to demonstrate that I may look different, but actually I am still one of you. And you use those. experiences to build you, make you stronger, and to build the narrative to support the next generations of disabled people through living your experiences and telling the good stories and explaining to people that actually difference doesn't make you suboptimal, and that there is a massive contribution to make. And you are absolutely right. It is important, if you're going to engage businesses, to not only say you have a contribution to make, but you have a contribution to make to their bottom line, both as customers, but as employees or potential employees as well, and as part of the wider community.
Fantastic. Acha, tell uh, we we in India have a long way to go in terms of inclusion and accessibility. How do you think of UK and Europe in terms of inclusion and accessibility?
I think if I look at it through the lens of my life, um, it is getting better. Uh, it is getting better, and there is a long way to go. Um, but what I would tell you is that disability is a global issue.
Yeah.
And I did a webinar about 6 months ago with one of our Purple Tuesday partners. Um, and predominantly the individuals that I was talking to, and by the way, the webinar was over 3,000 people on it.
Wow.
And the webinar was about disability, and it was about the work of Purple and some of the work we're doing internationally. And it was about the workplace, and it was about being a disabled customer. And I was asked to talk for 20 minutes, but asked that if there were no questions, whether I could stretch that to talk for 40 minutes. And I said that was not a problem. And I have to tell you, 12 minutes in, we had 144 questions
Wow.
in. And I would tell you, even though we were talking to people in Southeast Asia, the questions could have been from someone in Liverpool, in London, in Newcastle. It was the same kind of questions that I would have got in the UK. And I imagine if I did a webinar in New Delhi about Purple, about employment, and about being a disabled customer, the issues and the questions and the experience would still be the same or similar, with cultural nuances, than if the person was in Liverpool or Newcastle or London. So
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
tells me that what I talk about and my experiences, and more importantly, the solutions, resonate and have a ripple effect right across the world.
You're absolutely right. The problems are more or less the same, minus the cultural nuances. So, you're saying in terms of inclusion and accessibility and awareness about disability, things are far better than when you were growing up. And of course, they are. Do you think, are there any laws or anything in terms of the legal acceptance going to happen soon? Like we've had health and safety laws revamped a few years ago. I worked in a health and safety law company in North Wales, and initially the companies were, they felt that they are being forced to train their employees in HNS and all that. Then some marketing companies told them that it's in your benefit to train your employees in health and safety to avoid injuries and avoid workforce absenteeism, and down the line it affects your profitability. So profitability is what they understand, and this is where you're also talking to them. So do you think any legal structure being enforced sometime soon, pan Europe or in Britain?
I think certainly if I reflect on the UK experience, there needed to be a level of anti-discrimination law put in place because we needed a floor, a benchmark
Hmm.
which say, look, this is the framework in which we are going to treat disabled people,
Hmm.
and it is utterly illegal to discriminate against an individual because they so happen to have a
Hmm.
disability.
Hmm.
I think, and I don't want to sound twee or trite, but I think the biggest law is the law of common sense, and it's the law of what is right for us as a society and in our individual
Hmm.
countries. And in many ways, it goes back to the narrative
Hmm.
of understanding disability. So, a really good example, Hirsch, is that
Hmm.
across the world, people will recognize the international disability sign. It's the wheelchair,
Yeah.
and you will see everywhere in
Yeah.
the world. And everywhere I've gone in the world, it is absolutely known and understood.
Hmm.
However, across the world, only 8% of disabled people are wheelchair users. So
Hmm.
that sign, that perception reflects 8% of the world's population. 80% of disabled people have invisible, hidden disabilities. And that means they could come into your shopping mall, your
Hmm.
restaurant, your
Hmm.
business building, and you would not know that they had a disability. It
Hmm.
could be mental health, it
Hmm.
could be cancer, it could be
Hmm.
mild autism on the neurodiversity,
Hmm.
it could be dyslexia. Um, Disability is a really broad group of individuals with impairments.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the things we've got to do is educate the world to understand who we are talking about. And I
Hmm.
think one of the if there is any positive legacies to come
Hmm.
out of COVID, and I'm not sure there is, but if there was any positive legacy, it is that the some of the myths
Hmm.
around mental health, some of the taboos around mental health will be smashed to smithereens because
Hmm.
2 years ago, it was a taboo subject, particularly in business.
Hmm.
And I think what's happened in COVID is many people who never thought they'd be touched by mental health issues
Hmm.
are, or their families have been. And suddenly there's a greater awareness and understanding and
Hmm.
empathy
Hmm.
and making sure that those individuals are not discriminated against in employment or as a customer. And I think it really has shone a light. Mental health. And the other issue, by the way, is online accessibility, which
Hmm.
absolutely enormously grown. We know that 57% of people now buy their products and services on a
Online.
market.
Yeah.
And we know that only 3% of the top 1 million websites across the
Hmm.
world meet basic global accessibility standards. And that's in 2022. And for most businesses now, access, the gateway to their business is through their website. And
Yeah.
if the gate is closed because it's not accessible, then you are literally shutting out 17% of the world's population. And that
Hmm.
does not make economic, commercial, or social sense. And
Hmm.
the online world, to make it accessible, is really straightforward, really easy. most things, significant things, can be changed overnight. That increases accessibility.
Yeah.
And so it really makes common sense
Mm.
and commercial sense for
Mm-hmm.
businesses to make their websites, for example, and their digital devices accessible. And by doing that, you open yourself up to the market. And what we know is that uh, people and staff want to now work for brands that
Mm.
demonstrate inclusion, diversity, disability credentials. Customers will vote for brands who really invest in these issues. And
Mm.
across the world, investors are looking at ESG and social impact as a real instrument and decision maker in whether they invest in companies. And
Mm.
so across the world, I actually believe this decade is about diversity, it is about disability, and those that grab it will
Mm.
absolutely thrive, and those who don't will struggle to survive. And so I think there's a real huge opportunity that doesn't need to be driven by governments and legislation. But where we've got to get people is in a mindset of thinking it is both
Mm.
commercially and socially the right thing to do, because then you take the supply side with you
Mm.
on that journey. Don't
Yeah.
alienate them by forcing them to do something they think they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. I think it's a huge opportunity, and as you're saying, this decade, because of the technological advances, because of the last couple of years, people have found ways to connect. uh, you are in Chelmsford, I'm in somewhere in New Delhi, and we are chatting like this. So the connectivity has increased manifold in last couple of years. And yes, the last couple of years, 2.5 years, they've been a difficult year for a lot of people, and people have started thinking inwards. And as you said, we started by asking you about legislations required, and I think the biggest law that you talked about is the law of common sense. And more people are waking up to it, and you are waking corporations and organizations about things that they already know but never thought in terms of commercial viability. So you're giving them that magic potion that it drives your profitability. You're leaving out money on the table, cash on the table. You're showing them the cash on the table, and I'm sure a lot of brands would come up. Are you also, of course, you have Purple. Are you also training other people in spreading the message, often beyond Purple, so that people in other countries, people can take this message forward? Have you set up a structure for that, or are you thinking of doing it?
Yeah, we have. And so the banner behind me is Purple Tuesday, and
Hmm.
that's about changing the disabled customer experience
Okay.
to improve their accessibility in
Hmm.
order that they drive a better quality experience for disabled people that then buy more from them, that drives their P&L, which then drives their want to employ more
Hmm.
disabled people, as we've spoken about.
Hmm.
And last year, Purple Tuesday reached 18 million people. It trended at number 2 in Twitter,
Wow.
on Twitter. And I was in Dubai at the World Expo delayed 2020 in Dubai that is just finishing today, by the way. We were there in December on International Day of People with Disabilities to launch Purple Tuesday as a global initiative. And so we will be running a celebratory day on the 1st of November this year. in London at Piccadilly Lights, which is what we do. We will be running an event in the United Arab Emirates, in Dubai at the Burj Khalifa. We will be running an event in America, in Minneapolis, and we will be running an event across Asia, Malaysia, and Singapore in particular, to
Hmm.
recognize Purple Tuesday. And we are growing global partners, global organizations. So eBay is our headline partner this year, Standard Chartered Bank, SHL, real global organizations who are driving the messages that I am talking about into corporates, into
Hmm.
small and medium sized enterprises, with the message that get improving the customer experience is good
Hmm.
for business and good for disabled people. And really, we want to make this a global initiative. And maybe the challenge is to bring Purple Tuesday to India in 2023, because actually it raises awareness and understanding of the issues that I've talked about this morning. It gives people the confidence, the knowledge, and equips people to deliver it. And it brings that collaborative sense of community and society about this is the right thing to do. But what organizations and countries have said to me, particularly around the disabled customer, which is a fairly new concept,
Hmm.
is it's a great thing, yes, but how do we do it? And I think Purple Tuesday is a solution that would work in every country in the world. And that is our ambition and that is our objective. And
Hmm.
I think do that, then other issues like disability, employment, and community engagement will absolutely follow, because you'll have individuals, disabled and non-disabled, and businesses and organizations that understand disability from a different perspective and not simply about charity and vulnerable people.
Hmm. Hmm. I think we're going to uh, try and bring Purple Tuesday into India. I'll talk to people I know in corporates and hopefully put together a set of people and play on the idea and see where it goes. But I think it's going to happen sooner than later.
Well,
I'll
if
I'll
you were able to do that, Hirsch, then my commitment to you on this podcast is that I will come to New Delhi or anywhere else in India to
yeah.
talk about exactly why Purple Tuesday is so important.
We'll do it. We'll make it happen. So I'm letting this out because a lot of people from the corporates gonna watch this. So we'll have this discussion. We'll take it forward. Hopefully. Before you go, I have a one last request. I haven't seen. I have seen some photographs of your family on LinkedIn, especially that the ice cream one that you posted the last week. It was really funny, really nice. But you haven't. Have you posted a lot of your family pictures on public forums?
Do you know, I got asked this question a couple of days ago, and I took a decision about 8 months ago that I want people to buy into Purple,
Hmm.
and therefore I want people to buy into me.
Hmm.
And I people will only buy into me if they understand the whole me. And the whole me is me, my partner, and my 5 children.
Yeah.
So through my LinkedIn account, I regularly now tell the stories of my family and my children, with pictures of them as well.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook, purely and simply because there is just so much to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I do use LinkedIn, and I'm happy for you to share with the listeners my LinkedIn address, and I'm more than happy for them to follow me, for them to share, and they will then get to see the backlog of pictures from previous posts, and I can absolutely assure your listeners there'll be more pictures to follow as I
Yeah.
kind of tell the story of the Adams family around disability. And just to let you into a secret, my 2-year-old twin daughters, who
Yeah.
I post a lot about, they are 3 in June. And so there'll be some family pictures that will be shown in early June to celebrate their birthday. But it's really important because, you know, they they will live in a world where disability is accepted. I am their dad. I am disabled. That's who I am. And you can start to see 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds in 10 years' time are not going to think the same way as the previous generation. And I can tell you, having talked to so many young disabled people over the last 12 months, they are expecting to have a normal life. They are expecting to put reasonable adjustments in place. They are expecting to do everything that their friends do, and they're not going to accept anything less. And I
Yes.
think that is going to help because the leadership of countries at all levels are going to have the same mentality, and that will mean that change will accelerate, which
Mm.
will be brilliant and will leave, if my legacy is being a very, very small part of changing the disability conversation for disabled people worldwide, then it has been a real success, and I can retire with that knowledge and that gratitude to take you full circle from your first question.
Fantastic, fantastic. We've reached full circle. I'm sure the legacy will continue, and it's a very powerful thought that you gave. The young generation of disabled people with disability, they expect to live a normal life, and why not? Uh, this is a very powerful message going away. It was wonderful talking to you. We could go on for hours and hours, and maybe we'll catch up again. Maybe we'll see you in Delhi very soon. Hopefully, we'll use. We are okay to use some of your pictures from LinkedIn for the intro part of the podcast. Yeah,
Absolutely. And
right.
just contact me if you need some others, and I can send them over to you
Yeah,
on
yeah,
email.
just some personal pictures to start to showcase, because we make the intro separately, and just about a minute of showcasing your life, and then we start. So that I'll contact you for that. It's been wonderful. Thanks a lot for your time, Mike. And I a completely new chapter has opened for me, and I'm sure a lot of my readers, listeners will understand disability narrative from a different perspective. People both from the disability community and non-disabled people, everyone, it is an idea of inclusivity, which is common sense, but somebody needs to point a finger and show it to everyone, all of us. Thanks a lot again. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I'll see you hopefully in Delhi very soon.
And thank you very much. And thank you to your readers and listeners for having me. And I will say to everyone, if you have listened or read this, go away and do something, because even the smallest change can make an absolute huge difference. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. And yeah, do subscribe to Purple Tuesday. Do check into Mike's LinkedIn account and Twitter. You're on Twitter, right? And check out the website. If you're in the UK or Europe, there are a lot of ways you can connect with Mike and Purple. And people in India can also check that out. and we're going to take it forward. Thanks a lot. Have a good rest of the day, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye bye.